Hello, I'm Paul Chek, and welcome to Spirituality or 10 Commandments. You choose Lesson 10. We are comparing Christian, atheist, and Native American Indian 10 Commandments in this series. And it is my dream that everybody simply look at these different commandments with the model in mind that I share here. So let's look at our comparison model. The comparison model I share here, I borrowed and expanded upon from the teachings of Osho. If you have not heard of Osho, it's worth looking into. He's a marvelous teacher. In the middle of love, we see unconditional love, which is represented here as the eye of mind or the storm. The eye of the storm is not moving, essentially. Unconditional love cannot take on any condition. What we call God cannot be a thing. God is unconditional and therefore the source and substance of all things. If you don't like the word God, then in order to get to anything countable, you must come from zero. Zero is the womb of all things countable. If you look at the Chinese philosophy of Tai Chi, Wu Chi, they say the 10,000 things comes from the uncarved block. So unconditional love, or the O in love, is the uncarved block, and all things in mind, vibration, create the 10,000 things. When vibration ceases, silence exists. That is the first principle. Vibration is the second principle. If you look here at my basic model, you see sex and violence loving is all the way out to the left of the eye of the storm, where there is going to be the most turbulence. This phase of love simply represents the fact that we're all born by an act of sex, and that learning to be human is often a period of challenges in our life where we fall, we bang into things, we burn, we cut, we fight, we go through lots of challenges. So our first stage of loving, which is the most turbulent, is represented as sex and violence loving, and it exemplifies our inability to get what we want in relationships, typically without it being combative. After we've gone through enough of that, we start becoming honest enough to state the conditions we need in relationships. So I'm sure some of you have had more than one spouse. Each time you go further with the next one, you probably have become more capable of being clear about the conditions you need in a relationship before you jump in headlong. So conditional loving is less turbulent because we become more honest about our needs. So you see we step in a little closer to the eye of the storm, less turbulent. Empathetic and compassionate loving is the love of wisdom. It's the love of the heart. As I always tell my students, at one end of a human being is a mouthful of teeth, at the other end is an asshole. And we don't really reach our true potential until where our consciousness rests in the middle of those 2 points, where we can integrate the consumptive end of us, the ejectile end of us, and the loving end of us. An empathetic and compassionate lover is essentially someone who exemplifies wisdom and compassion for all, knowing that the source of life is the same for all created things and all living things. So with that model in mind, let's proceed now. Commandment number 6 is the Christian commandment, you shall not murder. Excellent commandment. My only commentary here would be, where does that commandment end? Is it okay to not murder human beings, but to murder animals? For example, if you look at the video or documentary Food, Inc., as one of many possible examples, you will see that at large human beings are totally inhumane to animals. We essentially are murdering our food in order to sustain ourselves. Rudolf Steiner said, it's okay to kill something as long as you're going to do something better with it. This is why I say grace to my food. I thank the food for participating in my life, and I ask the food if it would be willing to join me in creating a better world for all living beings, and I hold that as my highest intention. Yet, if we are taking life unconsciously, does it really matter whether it's a dog, a cat, a bird, a horse, a cow, or a donkey? Where does the idea of murder really end? Religious war is murdering. Yet, if you look at the number of people that have been involved in religious war since the beginning of religion, it's phenomenally large, yet almost all religions have ethics and morals tied to this very one, you shall not murder. So we need to be honest with ourselves about what the word murder means. And if we understand God to be unconditional love, the source of life, the source of soul, the source of mind for all things, then that commandment should extend itself pretty much everywhere throughout nature. And we should only seek to be working in cooperation with nature to do beautiful things. The atheist's sixth commandment is always seek to be learning something new. I love it. I love it. Every day my dream is to learn something new. There's an offering. I would say that's wisdom. I would say that's empathy and compassion. You could perceive that as a dictate, which would then be conditional, but I doubt that there's anything sex and violence there. The Native American Indian's sixth commandment is do what you know to be right. Well, that's a beautiful commandment. But the question is, what if what you know to be right is to murder to get your own way? So this is a problem, and the Native American Indian history is also full of warring and challenges. All you got to do is study the life of Chief Joseph, Chief Seattle, many of the great chiefs, Sitting Bull, etc. They had plenty of challenges, even with much simpler spiritual practices and religious ideology, because it's part of the nature of human beings. It's the nature of the universe itself. The universe has nothing to eat but itself. That's the whole meaning of the symbol of the Ouroboros, or the snake that eats its tail. If God is God, then God has nothing to eat but God. So do what you know to be right is a great idea, but this is no different than love thy neighbor as thyself, which we will explore later. But if you don't love yourself, then how can you love your neighbor any better? Do what you know to be right would be a wise offering if we knew that our actions were supportive of humanity at large and nature at large. Now, I happen to have Cherokee Indian blood in me. I'm 25% Cherokee Indian. My father's half-blooded. My grandfather was full-blooded Cherokee. So through my own bloodlines and my own intuition, I know that that commandment is a statement of empathy and compassion, but I wanted to share that there are challenges whenever we hear the words of wise people, because the wise people are most often teaching people that are less wise, so the words of a wise person can easily be misconstrued. Just to show you how dangerous these things are, current research shows there's some 22,000 branches of Christianity, but there was only one Jesus. So that creates a bit of a problem. There's tremendous battles in Islam, Judaism, Sikhism, Hinduism. It's all a constant boiling pot. So yet everyone thinks they're doing what they know to be right. This makes for some pretty challenging stuff, and this is why I share the love model that Osho teaches, because ultimately what is right is only right if everyone else who carried out the action would essentially come to a place of harmony or peace in their own life. If our creations serve the whole, then I would consider that to be right. One of the simple teachings I give my students is, if everyone did what you're about to do, would the world be a better place? Or simply ask the question, instead of saying do what you know to be right, what would love do now? And to the degree that you understand what love is, then you understand what love would do, and that would be the right thing. So I hope you've enjoyed our comparison today. Those of you interested in more of my products, feel free to visit ppssuccess.com, checkinstitute.com, and checkconnect.com, and visit my blog at paulcheck.com. Thanks for joining me today. I look forward to sharing our next series of commandments with you. Bye-bye.